Hey everybody, welcome to Photoshop 101. We're going to take our original room photograph and go from this to something like this. Um, Obviously you don't have to use the same exact items, but this should give you an idea of how best to do this. Okay, starting off, we'll just look at our tools. The first tool on your toolbar is your move tool. Um, it allows you to move layers and objects on layers. The keyboard shortcut for the move tool is V, as in Victor. The next tool that we'll be using is the marquee tool, and there are different shapes. You probably won't ever need the single row or single column. They select basically 1 pixel wide screen length or whatever. I don't know how you would say it, but basically they just select a pixel and all the way across. These two, on the other hand, we'll use a lot. Rectangular and elliptical marquees. The rectangle is self-explanatory. You can select an area, fill it. The same way with the elliptical. Basically, it's a circle, but to get a circle with the elliptical tool, you simply hold down the shift key, and that constrains it to a circle. So, and then to add to any selection, regardless of whether you're using the marquee tool or the lasso tool, hold down Control, Shift, sorry. Hold down Shift, and that adds to it. Hold down Alt, and that takes away from it. Okay, so Shift adds, Alt subtracts. Okay, Control D deselects. Right? Okay, then we come down to our lasso tools. There are 3. Don't worry about the magnetic lasso tool. It's more trouble than it's worth. The 2 that we'll worry about are the freeform and the polygonal lasso tool. Particularly this one, the polygonal lasso tool. This allows you to select just simply by clicking an area. The freeform is a little harder to use when you're using a mouse, but it's there if you need it. We have the magic wand tool, which is pretty much useless unless you have a solid color. As you can see, it doesn't select everything like like you would want it to, and it's not a precise selection. So even where it selects around a corner or an edge like this, if you zoom in, it's not perfect, and you would have to go back in with the lasso tool and fix that. So it's just easier to go ahead and use the lasso tool to begin with. The next selection tool is called the crop tool. Don't worry about these two, the slice and the slice select. Those are for web graphics, and that's not part of this class. Crop tool, on the other hand, is a tool that you use to crop out portions of an image that you don't want. Okay, in this case, we're constrained to a specific width and height, as you can see. over here, and you have presets. I prefer normally not to use these constraints and do a more freeform tool. If you hold down the spacebar, you can move the crop tool, assuming you're not recording, and I am. So uh, you can also use these corner um, anchors to manipulate the crop tool. And basically, when you get the crop tool where you want it, you click on this check mark up here, and that crops away every bit of the image that was outside of the box. Okay, so this is something you would probably want to use at the end of your editing, just to get rid of the unnecessary space. But in our case, we probably won't use that for this project. Okay, so we'll be sticking with the move, marquee, and lasso tools. So to begin, the first thing you want to do when you open a project is to double click on the background layer to make it an active layer. Okay, and in this case we're going to name it room. Okay, the excuse me, the walls are, we're going to separate them so we can paint on them. We're going to knock out these windows so we can put a background behind there. We might knock out this one, or we might put something over it to just cover it up. It's the same way with this AC unit. And then we're going to knock out the carpet and use a pattern or another color, solid color, to fill this in. Basically, we're going to remodel this room digitally. Okay, to start off with, let's zoom in, hit the F key to be able to move around like this, and zoom in using Control Plus. Select our polygonal lasso tool, and we're going to click on the outside so we overlap the image a little bit, and we're going to follow the contours of the wall as best we can. And then I'm going to drag up, and the screen is going to follow the cursor. When using the lasso tool, sometimes it's best to select portions of the image, you know, smaller portions of the image, and then select more as you go along, especially when you're having to zoom in. It's kind of hard to select the entire image in one swipe. So I'm going to click here and then drag out again beyond the image and double click to close the selection. Okay, now we want to add to this. Obviously we don't have enough of the wall selected to do anything with it, so we're going to go up here to our modifier tools. Okay, this is the regular selection. Basically, if I were to click a new selection marquee out here somewhere, it would deselect this in favor of the new selection. The next one is the add to selection, which is what we want to use, and as you can see, if I click, it adds to it. Then the third is the subtract from selection. It's self-explanatory. See, the fourth is something I don't think I've ever used. It's called the intersection selection. Um, Basically, it's going to select only the part where these intersect, which, you know, I guess could be useful. Like I say, I've not used it before, um, so we'll pretty much stick with these two right here, the add to and subtract from. To move around, to pan around your image, in this case, we're using the space bar. Hold down the space bar and then click and drag. Back to our lasso tool, make sure we've got add to selection clicked. We're going to click in and start reselecting. In this case, I'm just going to break it here at the wall. Click on the space bar and drag down. Click. Double click to add to it. Okay. So now we've got this wall entirely selected. We're going to go through this wall next. So click and drag all the way over here at the wall break. And I'm going to try to get as much of this detail as possible. Double click to close. Now I noticed as I was dragging, this wall is not completely even, so I missed part of the top here, so I'm going to go back in and click like this, and that's close enough for government work. Here is a little overlap, so I'm going to hit the Alt key, click, and double click, and that subtracts from the selection. So back to our add to, we're going to add this last wall here. All the way to the bottom. And try to get this wall outlet. And then just drag the cursor up. Sort of go into the shadow area here, right up next to the floor vent, and then overlap our last selection and double click. Okay. Now I think up here I've got too much, so I'm gonna hit the Alt key. Well, escape first. Hit the Alt key, click, and sort of take that out. Double click to close, and that's it. I zoom out. Now we can see that we have our wall completely selected around the edges. We kept our molding. I don't know why, but you know, that's just me. We kept our floor vent. Again, I don't know why. That's just my particular nature. But we've still got these windows selected, and we don't want that in our image. Okay. When we paint this wall, we want to only paint the wall portion. We don't want to paint this trim, and we don't want to paint over this. Now I'm not going to worry about this window. Like I said, we're probably going to remove it completely. The same way with this, I'm not going to worry about it. But I need to subtract these two windows, so I'm going to go up to my subtract from selection tool, zoom in a little bit so I can get a better look at it, make sure my lasso is selected, and start clicking and dragging, clicking, excuse me, in selecting. Okay. So I'm going to subtract this entire area from this selection. Sometimes I will talk to myself, so if I trail off, just bear with me. Double click to close the selection, okay, and escape if you keep getting that. Anyway, so we have the wall selected and the windows excluded. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is create a new layer. Control Shift N. We're going to name this walls, and then we're going to create a layer mask. If you follow my cursor down to the bottom of the layers palette, there's a rectangle with a circle in the middle. Click on that. Okay, now if you look at the layers palette, you have the layer itself, which is in this case is just a checkerboard pattern because we haven't added anything to it. Next to that is a black and white image. This is the mask, and the masks are stored in the channels palette. They are a grayscale image, 255 layers, 255 levels, excuse me, of gray, from black to white and everything in between. Black is completely transparent, white is completely opaque, gray is transparent or opaque, somewhere in between that. Okay, that's easy to remember. We want to exit out of our layer, so we're going to click on the checkerboard pattern right now. And we're going to add a color to change this wall color to basically paint in one fell swoop, and come over here to my swatches. Where are my swatches? They're probably not up here. There they are. Okay. This is my own personal layout, so anywho, we'll choose just a random color. In this case it's going to be green, and we go up to Edit, Fill, and we're going to choose a color. In this case it's going to be our background color. For some reason that was what was selected, and we're going to fill this area, this layer, with the background color. And now we've painted the room, but it's kind of flat. There's no contours or anything. It's just basically a solid fill color. But you can see already that we've cut out the areas that we masked out over here. Okay. Now we're going to change this layers blending mode over here under layers palette to multiply, and that brings back our shading. So, and multiply works pretty well for most colors. It depends on what color you're using and how dark it is, but in this case it works fairly well to bring back our shadows. Okay, again, everything that was masked out is left alone. Everything that was in the white area was colored. Okay, so that's our wall layer. Okay, so we're at the almost at the 20-minute mark, so I'm gonna close this video, and we'll call this part 1, and we'll come back for part 2 later on. And I hope this helped you with your room project and using the selection tools and the layers palette and the masks. And come back for part 2. Thank you.